help spacefarers give the education they deserve. Don't trust the man. Alright, what else was I gonna do? Ah, shit! Yes! Yes! Let's fix this damn roof. Ugh. That was easy. Oh, man, if it were that easy, I wouldn't have paid all those guys to do all that work. I would have had some beer money. What is that light over there? My God. All right. Let's see what we got here. There is a lot, so, oh man, I'm gonna have fun talking about this one.
Battlezone, the remake of the acclaimed classic, Battlezone. Gotta love telling the difference. It was a game released in 1983 by Atari in which the player controlled a vector-style tank and shot down other tanks and occasionally UFOs. Shit, man. It was often considered the first VR game thanks to its perspective, and widely noted to be used by the US Army, because in America's eyes, you know that means business. Afterwards, it was ported to every system imaginable, including many compilations over the years. More than a decade later, Activision, before they became the company known for running games into their inevitable demise, released a remake to Battlezone in 1998. And ended up not only living through the original's concepts that preceded it, but innovating its gameplay as well.
Now, first of all, you have to consider what was out back then. In '98, we had first-person shooter games like Half-Life, Counter-Strike, Quake, Unreal Tournament, and RTS games like Command & Conquer, Tiberian Sun, and StarCraft, which would eventually evolve into AAA games of their own in the future. After all, this was a time when 3D graphics was breaking new ground, and games had to find a way to stand on it and become memorable to the players. Of course, a lot of failures have come and gone, and we still have cases of deficiency in the medium, but others succeeded and made a name for themselves as their years of accomplishment heightened them to the leviathans that they presently are. This is what's so interesting about Battlezone, as it took those two genres and seemingly melded them into its core. How, you ask? Well, I'm about to find out. Oh, I forgot about this simulator!
The game starts by having you pick a campaign or entering training mode. Since we are just starting out, I'll go ahead and pick training. After a quick loading session, I begin by learning how to move around on foot, as well as in a ship/tank/hover vehicle. It's been eons since I played, and now I realize how stiff it is to control your movement. If you ever played Wave Race 64, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. But once you get used to it, you'll feel confident in your ability to just get around any obstacle in front of you. After gliding down into a crater, hovering from platform to platform, and engaging a test turret, I decided it was time to start the actual story mode by picking the US campaign first. The story follows an alternative history in which the United States and the Soviet Union discover raw materials and meteorites known as biometal. This enables both sides to build these vehicles and allows them to deploy in space and fight across the solar system in order to gain control of the precious resource. It's a story that works for a setting like this and helps you get attached enough to care for what you're fighting for, even if it is just an excuse to hear that badass narrator in between each mission.
Sometimes it bugs me that Armstrong and Shepard get all the credit. But we all wanted to win the Cold War.
You, Ed Harris. Cool, I get to drive that tank. Wait, what? I'm on the ground? How does that make sense? The mission is to build a scavenger in order to gather some scrap for your recycler. This is where the genre mixing comes to play, as not only you can ride around in whatever you want, but you can build whatever you want too. Just make sure you have enough scrap to do so. Like the RTS genre, you can build units and command them to do your bidding to get the mission done, but all from a first-person perspective! It may not look like much, but just commanding all your units to do all these actions with simple keystrokes makes you feel like Commander Badass. Think End War, but 10 years prior. So I built my scavenger, and with a simple command, it's off to gather some scrap. But like gatherers beforehand, it has no way to defend itself, so it's up to me to look for any intruder. Oh. Wait, what? My mission failed? I guess I'm kind of rusty at this game, so I'll try again. Okay, now it's dead, and off to the what? Well, that came out of nowhere. I just killed a scout, and now you expect me to back up and defend another scavenger after an epic battle with this asshole? So I went with a full head-on approach. After some trial and error, I successfully defended the scavengers and completed my mission. Now on to hear the narrator once again. Yeah, gotta love compatibility issues. The next mission is to defend— Whoa, what? Okay, we're good. The next mission is to defend the base while waiting for more troops to arrive. This is where we get a good sense on how to use units to defend the base. By setting up the recycler, you can manufacture turrets to defend the structures and scouts to follow you around in case something gets on your blind side, or your scavengers cause, yeah. Our first wave appears, and my army of turrets have taken them down without me lifting a finger. But there is one thing I did notice from that standoff. Why did the scavengers ignore the scouts? I saw them get hit several times. And that wasn't the only instance either. I guess scavengers just don't give a fuck. That's one of the major complaints I have with this game, the AI. I understand that back then programming intelligence was tough, but in a game where any misstep in a battle plan can lead to a mission failure, that's a huge no-no. Luckily it was rare when I ran into these problems. More or less. Another complaint is the opposite when you're waiting around. But like I said, these are complaints, and every game ever is not perfect. Sometimes. But if you play with the game's problems instead of against it, you'll have an enjoyable time. Think of what mindset played RTSs back in the late 90s, compared to today when unit management and build priority is more streamlined and well managed, as well as FPS controls being more refined. As you progress through the campaign, the plot thickens. As you continue the fight against Russia, a new species comes into play, the ones who discovered the biometal. You figure out this mystery by going to such planets and moons like Venus, Titan, Europa, and lastly a fictional moon, Achilles. The final battle is where you have to destroy the base manufacturing weapons known as Fury vehicles. This is pretty much the hardest battle, and for good reason, but once you destroy that base, you'll feel accomplished. As a sci-fi military story set in space, it's really well done with convincing voice acting and characters you actually care about, even if you don't see them. But after beating the US campaign, you can finally move on to the Soviet campaign, which in comparison to the US story is not as dynamic, but in return provides much harder levels and the use of Soviet vehicles, which are not as different, but much more powerful compared to the speedier vehicles in the US campaign. I guess this was meant to be the campaign you played after the US story, but it could have been done like Tiberian Sun, where they're both on equal footing at the start.
Well, that's Battlezone for you. It was pretty good back in the day, and I'm still impressed at how well it aged. We don't see many hybrids of genres like this, and it was so refreshing to play something different in this day of overhyped games. If you want to play it, it's always free to download on their site. Maybe it'll be good for you. I mean, let's face it, games these days don't get this innovative as they... Ah!